You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast, the Halloween franchise, Halloween 2.
Welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Its purpose is to look into horror films, dissecting them one screen legend and franchise at a time. Our podcast subject for this episode is dedicated to the Halloween franchise, with the first sequel, Halloween 2. In order to successfully do this, we need a team of horror aficionados who will form the surgical team each episode. So first up is yours truly, Paul Farrell. I'm the lead surgeon and host for the series, and joining me each episode at its operating theatre of the Halloween franchise discussions is Chief Surgical Technician Ben Skinner.
Hello there.
Hey again. So that was a bit kind of... Both of us were a bit caddish there, weren't they? Hello there. Hi. How are you?
It sounds very forced.
Yeah, it does.
It's like, we're sitting in the room together.
It's natural. It's all natural.
Yeah.
And look, as always, bring you in to help me get into the guts of the subject. Before we start talking about the film itself, just a bit of background. It was released 3 years after the original movie. John Carpenter would step down from the director's chair, but he would still provide the screenplay and produce credits as well, alongside his partner, Deborah Hill.
And did he compose this fully, or just partially?
No, it was partially, I think.
Or did he just... Like, when it says it's the music by John Carpenter and...
Music by, because he did the original score,
Yeah.
so that, you know, that
So
the
purely
signature
that,
theme,
yeah.
yeah. The whole... Is this the one with the synth action going on?
Yeah, it's
that's
pretty
not...
extreme.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah. And so the film would obviously see the return of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode and Donald Pleasance reprising his role of Dr. Sam Loomis. But does the movie stand up in the Halloween franchise? Is it worthy of its predecessor? Before we begin our dissection, Ben, how familiar were you with the franchise? We were just sort of talking about this pre-record. How familiar were you with the franchise of this movie? Had you seen any of these movies before, or where do you stand?
Well, not... I hadn't actually seen until recently any of the sequels except for H2O.
Yeah.
Which I think I saw in the aftermath of the slasher, the second slasher phase of like post Scream. I guess everyone was making slashers again.
Exactly, and obviously with Kevin Williamson attached to it as well with H2O, and that all kind of... Yeah, you're right. There was a second phase of slashers that came about at that stage.
There weren't there was diminishing returns, but
of course.
Like, I think I steered clear of the direct Halloween, the earlier sequels, because I just kept hearing from people that,
they weren't so good.
Nothing was really, like, it would kind of take away from the experience of watching the first one. So I stayed away from it as long as I possibly could. But I did know, I had heard that out of all of them, this was probably one of the stronger ones.
Yeah.
And the fact that it picks up straight off from the first one,
yes,
I found that was intriguing, like hearing that.
Yeah.
But I knew, like, straight away, you kind of, as soon as you know that the original director's not attached anymore, straight away that kind of alters your experience with the film. Yeah.
I get what you're saying with that, and I agree. You kind of end up psychologically almost kind of responding to it in a certain way.
Sitting down to watch this, that's where I was. That's what the kind of mindset that I was in.
Sure, and for the sake of the podcast listeners, you came into watching this purely literally just off the back for the sake of this podcast to discuss the Halloween 2. Yeah. So from my point of view, I had seen this one prior. I remember quite a lot.
Came out, or?
No, in 1981 I would have been about 3 or 4 years old, so no. But
that wasn't even a joke.
No, I'm not that old, Ben. I may look it.
This fucking kid.
No, it's all good. But then, like, as you know, I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. And as we discussed in the first discussions of Halloween, I watched this at a fairly young age, and was intrigued by the whole concept of who Michael Myers was early on. I'm not entirely sure when I watched Halloween 2, but when I was rewatching it again for this podcast, a lot of it flooded back memory-wise. It was one that was still quite... embedded in the cerebral there. You know.
Did you kind of do them all in a big hit? Like
for the sake of the podcast?
No, like when you first watched it.
I've got a feeling I think Halloween 3 I didn't watch until not recent, but in the last couple of years.
So you watched them all kind of out of order.
Yeah, definitely out of order now.
I mean, that makes sense. That is notoriously the sits by itself in the series. Yeah.
Oh, of course, and we'll talk about that in our next podcast discussions with number 3. But like with 4 and 5 kind of blur a bit, I guess, because it's using the same character as the protagonist. But so they kind of blur a bit. I have no memory of 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, which doesn't say a lot about it.
No.
Looking
forward to that one.
Yeah, exactly. H2O obviously was strong in the mind, as you said.
All I really remember from that is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like one of his earlier film roles.
Absolutely.
And an ice skate. Something happens with an ice skate, I think.
Is that right? I'll have to... God.
I don't know.
I'll have to look at that Ellen again. And then obviously Resurrection and should... not a lot really... We will go and talk about that one, but yeah, it's pretty poor. And then the Rob Zombie movies, we will get to talk about those.
Just in a league of their own, really.
They are. Well, they are. They came so late. There was such a big gap between where the franchise left off and where Zombie picked it up. So, but we will talk about those down the track. So let's bring us back to Halloween 2, and I've tried to break them up into 3 acts. The first act being the setup, so we'll kind of get a bit of background about what's happening. Those of you that are new to listening to our podcast discussions, we kind of just preamble and talk shit, but the idea is that as we talk through the narrative, we'll kind of comment where we feel comments needed.
It's interesting shit, though, right?
It is interesting shit.
I like to hope so.
I like to hope so. I don't. Are we trumping ourselves?
We've just questioned our entire existence.
No, it's all good. Everyone loves to hear people talk shit. Come on, especially over horror films. There's always something to talk about, whether the movie's good or not.
That's right.
So look, the first kind of bit that I guess we need to talk about is as we open up, we hear Mr. Sandman music playing. What was your thoughts on that as a piece of music?
I've got the wrong movie here. This is not the right film.
Yeah.
But I kind of liked it. I was like, Back to the Future.
Yeah, that has...
Would come later.
Come later than this.
They beat them to the punch on that.
They did.
Although
it's interesting that we automatically think Back to the Future with that. I mean, we are that... I'm definitely of that generation. That was... Back to the Future was one of the first films I remember seeing in the cinema. So it has a strong connection with me.
But what do you think was the intention behind using
it's
that
the whole
track,
I guess it's the whole kind of the idea of
boogeyman.
The boogeyman and somebody that comes in the night, in your dreams in Mr. Sandman's instance. But
it's obviously it's not period accurate, but
no,
I don't think that really matters.
No.
But it definitely feels like it's very out of place with the music for the rest of the film.
Yes, absolutely, and we'll come to that as well. So, as you said in the intro, Ben, we pick up the movie, where we left off from the first film. It's a continuation. But for the sake of this film, there's a series of flashbacks for those to remind us of where we left off. We then get that Halloween music that you were talking about with the music synth added to it. What were your thoughts about?
At first I liked it. I'm action. Like, I know this, but it's just been tweaked a bit.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like outstays its welcome over the course of the film.
Yeah.
It's there's something to be said for how Carpenter uses one theme, but variations on that theme throughout his films. But this was obviously another composer was working on this one.
Yeah,
it doesn't have that same. I don't know. You do get sick of it. It actually becomes annoying in some places.
Yeah. No, I agree with
overbearing as well.
So, here's the thing: with the sequels, they always try and up the ante of the predecessor in order to make it bigger and better.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they fail on that note in trying to strive for that.
God.
And this, I think, is an instance of that because the beauty of John Carpenter's original score is the simplicity of it, and all the scores he does. It's very simple, quite but that's what resonates and makes it haunting.
Yeah.
As soon as you try and layer that, you kind of lose the original kind of effect that it was going for.
But I mean, he did that out of necessity for the budgetary constraints and things, right? Like that wasn't. I don't know. Like, I mean, the piano thing was great, and it's a classic score now. But at the time, you know, he was just thinking, "This is all I can really do is just a piano score."
Absolutely. But look at it. Like, look at how long it's transcended. You know, it's or how far it's.
And there's been countless remixes and stuff done.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So look, let's pick up with the movie. So as it picks up proper in this instance, we see Myers, doing the fall from the window from the last movie. Loomis actually now runs out onto the lawn and
Get off my lawn.
Myers' disappearance. He does see blood on the grass, and then Loomis knocks on a neighbour's door, kind of says, "I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight." And Loomis's response, "You don't know what death is." And then we get the opening credits with more of the synth action. But interestingly, with the graphic, we get that whole, the jack-o'-lantern image, and then it slowly reveals a skull embedded inside it. What were your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Oh, that was cool. I'm like, that's a badass way to, open a film. Maybe they should have done that instead of the Sandman song. But I'm interested to see how the opening credits continue through the series and whether they keep building on that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely signature of
the pumpkin. Yeah,
the pumpkin.
Because obviously it's there. It's almost like their opening crawl, the Star Wars.
Yeah. That's right.
Kind of expecting it.
Yeah. Okay, so we pick up again from Michael's point of view. There's a nod to the original as he goes through the streets. We hear Loomis saying, "I shot him 6 times. He isn't human," as the sheriff picks him up. And they drive off in search for Myers. Myers then looks through the window, kind of very similar to the opening of the first one. In this instance, though, he kind of is watching this old lady making a late night supper. Her husband is asleep, and of something of note, in the background on the TV is Night of the Living Dead playing, which I thought was a nice little nod.
That was.
Yeah. And then, whilst the lady is distracted, Michael steals his weapon of choice, the knife. And the old lady kind of comes back in the room and she sees the knife is missing with blood, and then she screams. This prompts the next door neighbour, a young lady, who hears the scream and calls out, but then she just goes back inside her house where she continues a phone conversation. This is where she hears about the murders that have been taking place in Haddonfield that night, and we see Myers enter the house in the background.
But this house is like only a couple of blocks from where the murders took place.
It's not far. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very close. So she's getting a real understanding of the murders that have been taking place and how close she is to the vicinity. Little does she know that she's a lot closer to the action than she'd like to be.
You should do the audio commentary on this film. Just narrate the whole film.
That's it. The young woman then, she hears the noise and then notices the front door is open. She goes to investigate, at which point Myers jumps out and kills her. Thoughts on the first kill?
It's quite quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like they cut away.
Very quick to the point.
But you do see the knife go in?
No.
Or is it I for some reason I got the feeling that was more violent than it probably actually was.
Maybe it was. I'm just I don't know if you see it go in. She's definitely stabbed in the chest.
Yeah.
With the knife, but I can't remember visually what you see.
Yeah.
Within it.
I don't know if it's definitely not. Like I didn't jump.
I didn't jump. I mean, no, because he's there. It's not. This instance isn't a jump scare. This is just him starting his bloodbath again.
Yeah.
Setting the path forward to what's to become. We then at this point, then we cut back to where all the drama has happened before with Laurie, and then we follow the police. We see Laurie being taken away on a stretcher and into an ambulance. We then arrive at the hospital where Laurie is taken inside. There's this drunk doctor that attends to her. Meanwhile, Loomis and the sheriff still drive around trying to locate Myers. The sheriff, at which point, kind of basically has a go at Loomis, like, you let him out. They come across some kids trick or treating on the street, and one of them looks a bit like Myers. He walks down onto the street, where he's then promptly knocked down by another police car, and then engulfed in flames.
It's full on.
Yeah,
I'm just that escalated really fast.
It did. And obviously, like, at this point, it's hard to tell if that's Myers or not, and we know that he's prone to surviving and coming back.
Why would this guy run? What, like, obviously, he's obviously a bad dude if he was running anyway, so he probably did deserve to die.
Maybe. Indeed. We don't get the background of this guy, do we?
No.
We never find out.
Got a family?
So we're unknown. Obviously, it's not going to be Michael, but the idea is that you don't know for sure whether or not it is, or from Loomis's point of view, we don't know.
Yeah.
The sheriff then hears of the death of his daughter Annie from the first film, and then he drives off. That's kind of the last we see of him at this instance. He's kind of written out at this point as he pursues it, and we pick up the only law enforcement that we see from this point on are all the deputies that are kind of running around, trying to pick up after the mess. We go back to the hospital and where Laurie awakens. There's an Ambo guy named Jimmy who's of similar age to her, maybe a bit older, and he's showing concern for her. We then go back to a typical street scene in Haddonfield as the locals proceed with their Halloween traditions, unaware of the evening's proceedings.
So what time of night is this, do you
It
think?
must be really late, hey?
This is the longest night in history.
It is, isn't it?
I feel like maybe time is frozen.
Maybe it has.
For Michael Myers' purposes. Like,
he gets around quite quickly, though.
because you would imagine that we were, I thought the first film ended like just before dusk.
Yeah.
But I guess the kids were still awake, and
they were as well. They got woken up and taken out. It was definitely dark at the time it started. But I guess, like, on the grand scheme, if we're looking at this from if we're going to really get into the guts of it, I think it would work though, because like you would say, like maybe the original events would have concluded around
in the early evening.
Yeah, like
so Myers is
9
like,
or 10 o'clock.
I want to get this done so I can be home in time.
Yeah,
I want to get a good night's sleep after I kill.
Yeah,
and then just a spanner was thrown in the works.
That's it.
But there's people still out trick or treating, like.
That late?
Yeah.
I think the older you are, you probably would. Like, young kids probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, but there are young
kids there, that's true. I don't know. I'm not...
I want a breakdown of this. It really annoys me in films when it's like, those ones that are set over the course of a night, like, how many things they accomplish, like in Superbad, or even like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like,
yeah. All those kind of things. It's interesting, isn't it? Because like I feel like the podcast Serial where they retrace the steps.
They break it down.
Break it down. Is that what you're saying? We need to do. We need to do a reenactment of the events that occurred in Haddonfield.
I say this. I would be very surprised if someone hasn't already done this. And like done timestamps and. If
they haven't, and we need to do it. I think we've thrown down the gauntlet.
Prove to me this is possible.
All right, I'll put that as a test to myself. At some point, you may hear it.
I'll get it right on that.
So we see so we just to conclude the first act, we kind of see the kid bump into this figure, and it's revealed to be Michael. Cue the music, signature music, as we follow him down the street, past a sign pointing towards the hospital. So what I thought was there's quite a lot that happens in that kind of first act, as it were, and it's setting the scene. We know he's heading towards where Laurie is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nothing going on. Like,
there is.
There's weirdly, like, there's shots where they just carry on twice as long as they need to.
Yeah.
And I think they think that they're building suspense or something, but I just don't think they have enough story for the 19 minutes worth.
I kind of agree there too, because like I even found it really hard to dissect this down into the 3 acts, because I was trying to find where does that first act finish, and to me I was like, well, like, it kind of needs to be there.
Yeah.
And even the middle act blends really massively into where the finale is, because once from here on in, most pretty much all of the action takes place at the hospital. So that kind of is your logical stepway, but there is a lot of much and nothing happening before we kind of start.
It's weird because it's almost like you're sitting there and go. I mean, a bit of it's like just modern. Modern movies are quicker. I mean, our attention span is. But I think even if you're looking at it through that framing, like.
Yeah.
There's definitely moments that are like, there's no reason why this shot is like, do we really need to see them like walk up to the house and like bring Laurie out on the gurney and then put her in the ambulance? And drive
that's right.
Like, there's no real purpose of it. It's just like an assembly edit, before they've done the trimming.
That's right, and in that way, is that a sign of? So I don't know if I've mentioned it in here, but the director was Rick Rosenthal for this. It was his first movie as a director. So is that a sign of, we've spoken in the past where Carpenter is able to stitch through several pages into one fluid scene? Is this an instance where a more trained director would be able to kind of do those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he just didn't have the coverage.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
he only had it in the master shot,
Yeah.
which is like the big, obviously the big wide.
Yeah,
you
for
kind
sure.
of run the scene through, and then you get your little like close-ups and mid-shots and stuff. But yeah, I think even like your average cinema goer might be a bit bored at times. Even in the first act, and just like, all right, let's get. Is this story going to kick into the next gear? Or
and it doesn't really until like a fair chunk of the way in the movie. Yeah, and then we start getting the whole kind of almost Terminator-esque kind of police station scene, but in a hospital scenario. Anyway, look, so let's look at the middle act. So I've just called this the hospital because this is kind of where the bulk of the action takes place. We get one of the nurses who turns up at the hospital. We see in the mirror that Michael has arrived too on scene. There's a bit of flirtiness between Nurse Carol and the older Ambo guy whose name's Bud.
I'll get you a Coke.
Yeah, very flirty, very over.
Oh, sorry, I'm referring to the Laurie, the guy who's obviously got the hots for Laurie.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, no.
When he says
that is flirty going there too, but that's a bit more subtle than
just the hospitals, man.
Yeah, brings out the flirty in everyone. There is a bit of toing and froing at this point, but with a lot of the various characters, which kind of hence why you're getting confused with some of the scenarios. But and we also in one part of the scenario we have a weird moment where Myers goes into the nursery with all the babies as well, which is kind of like a child amongst infants. I don't know.
I don't know
what that's saying.
So what does he actually do? He's just breathes heavily and just like.
He doesn't do it. Well, as far as we know, we don't see what he does in there.
But it's also weird, that nursery thing, because it's like they're in this little room. She's absent most of the time. Yeah. Like, who's looking after the
I know the babies. I know, that's right. Like, it's very weird.
Think of the children.
Maybe that's what Myers was doing.
Oh, let's not go there.
Looking after all the babies.
Actually, it's okay. He was
potential victims.
Isn't that, I mean, he cares for shit. Like, anyone above the age of a certain... Like, he just doesn't... He has a code.
That's it.
Like, he's like Scarface. No fucking kids, man. No
fucking kids. Gotta wait till they're teenagers and having sex.
Yeah.
Then I'll reap my wrath. We go to this, as you were saying, Jimmy's the younger Ambo guy. So like we have this kind of deep and meaningful moment between Laurie and him, and she's just questioning why her. Obviously now we know down the track after watching the film why it is her.
Do we know that?
Not at this point.
No.
Not at this point when she says that, but it's revealed. It's revealed later in the film.
Yeah.
So we learned that Laurie's parents are missing also, and that the phone lines are down. I don't think we ever get the answers to where Laurie's parents are.
It's a convenient little...
They just aren't around. We have this security guard who goes to kind of investigate why the lines are down. He checks the dumpster, and there's like blood there, and we get that the typical cat jump scare moment.
Yeah.
Which to me is always a bit of a weak way of kind of trying to scare people. It always seems to be like the go-to of horror vehicles. Sometimes
it's a beat that they think that the audience wants. But it's been done to death.
Yeah, I mean maybe at this point I don't know. I have to
possibly not.
Look up history of horror film cat jump scares. Another task for me to do. But yeah, who knows? So the security guard then discovers a broken lock. He proceeds into what looks like a tool shed. The guard hears a noise. He investigates further. There's a brief comical moment when he opens a wardrobe and all the stuff falls down on him. But this only acts as a distraction device, as when he opens another wardrobe, he is then bludgeoned over the head with a hammer by Myers.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
That's what you get for taking a long time.
Yeah, should just be quick.
Yeah.
In and out.
It's a long... That is a particularly long... I think that stands out as...
A long... Yeah.
It's... Yeah, I'm sure that they think they're building tension in that scene, and they're like, oh, this is great. Like, audiences are just going to be like... So you're sitting there going like... It's almost comical that it goes on for so long.
I know, that's right. It just... And for such a minor character too. Like, you don't...
It just goes to show, like, it really is a hard thing to, like, getting horror right.
Yeah.
Like, when it gets done right, like, you really need to give them credit when, because they manipulate your, like, emotions and anxieties, like...
Yeah. And I think we're, like, I'm in the process of recording the Friday the 13th franchise discussions with another podcast, Miles, which will release when the new Friday the 13th movie comes out. Which unfortunately it sounds like it's going to be next year, which sucks. Anyway, but it's the same kind of thing. Like we're talking about, same kind of horror beat, with the serial killer franchise stuff going on with Myers and Jason. And in our discussions, the same kind of thing kind of props up. It's with the sequels, there is this kind of misbeat kind of that doesn't quite kind of hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That what they try and repeat from the original.
I think they just mistake if I follow this character long enough, enough jump scary things happen.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna translate on screen as oh, this is scary.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
You probably don't know. It probably is hard to know until you're in the editing room and you're actually watching it.
So that's what the thing is. It comes down to the editing, doesn't it? And so the editing needs to be sharper. And we're used to, as you were saying, as a modern audience, with a lot faster editing.
Yeah.
Slicker process of knocking that stuff together. And anyway, it's
oh well,
it's something.
R.I.P. security guy.
Yeah, he's gone. We then go to the coroner's office where they are looking at the charred remains of the Myers lookalike kid, and they discover his real identity, i.e. not Michael Myers. And then we also have this moment where Loomis has this profound moment where he's talking on Myers, saying he was the ideal patient because he was so withdrawn and.
One of many monologues that he goes on.
That's it.
He's a good actor, though.
He's so good. I love him in this.
He's ahead of everyone else in this film.
Leagues ahead. So then we go back to the hospital. Nurse Carol and Bud, the Ambo guy, hook up downstairs in the therapy room, the spa therapy room, where they get into said spa, of which there's also a bit of a boobage. Yeah, thanks. I was trying to think of the right word there.
Yeah,
and it's one of the moments that this particular moment is one of the moments when you talk to any kind of Halloween fan or horror fan that's familiar with the movies, the scene that stands out to them,
right?
For said reasons, I think.
Yeah, I think probably if you went and saw this and your mates asked you what it was like, and you were a teenager, you'd be like, oh, it's got some good boobage, so it's probably worth checking out for that. Exactly.
So look, but of course they're getting their action on, which is only going to be a downward spiral for them as the characters, as we know, committing the eternal sin. And in said scene, we see a hand turn on the temperature gauge, and so then as it starts to feel like it's getting hotter, Bud goes to check the temperature, and we see him get strangled by Myers in the background. Myers then comes into the room and sneaks up behind Carol. He puts his hand on her shoulder. She presumes it's Bud, but just then Myers pushes her head into the boiling water and scalds her face, drowning her at the same time.
That's pretty brutal.
So that's probably the most brutal kind of kill in this scene too, because we see the physical effect that it has of pushing her head underwater. And
it's a good makeup effect.
It's really good.
I wonder how much the actual actress was, involved in that. Being dipped,
I know from the commentary or some of the extras or stuff that I watched behind it, she did comment on how Bud's character kind of gets it a bit easy. You kind of see him getting killed kind of in the background, but and yet she's the one that gets the whole kind of impact done on her. So there you go.
That's why you don't fornicate in hot tubs.
No.
Well, it's not really even a hot tub, is it?
No, it's better a therapy spa kind of thing.
Not very safe, is it?
No.
You should have a limiter on that temperature.
Yeah, they should.
I guess this was a different time.
It was different time, different rules. So then we come back to our kind of deputy character that we start following, who's with Loomis. They discover that the school has been broken into, and the word "Semaine" is written in blood on a blackboard, and a knife has been shoved into a picture of a girl as well. A woman turns up from Smith's Grove Mental Hospital and tells Loomis that he must return, and she has a marshal with him to escort him back there.
Was she in the first film?
I don't think she was.
She was just character.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So basically, Loomis has been given his marching orders to kind of return. He's been obviously away kind of for a fairly long period of time. Back at the hospital again, we have Jamie, the young Ambo guy, swearing that he'll protect Laurie. Laurie appears to have fallen into some kind of a trance and is unresponsive. So we have another nurse named Janet who goes then to find the doctor, only to find that the doctor's been killed with a syringe through the eyeball, which is a pretty nasty image, much to our delight. And Myers then sneaks up on her and exacts the same kind of method killing of, syringing her with basically an air bubble is essentially how she gets killed. So what do we think of that kind of little moment there? So we kind of have a reveal that the doctor's out dead, and then the sneak
I guess I'm just like, oh, cool. We're gonna, slowly work up through the medical tools until we get to. I'm just trying to think what the most painful way to die in a hospital would be. I mean, we've gone from being scalded in a jacuzzi to the needle. I don't know how much worse it actually gets than that.
No,
but we don't see the doctor. That's an off-screen death.
Is it not? Yeah, that's an off-screen death. We just see the result of said death. Yeah. So it's definitely kind of up in the ante. They're slowly. I mean, it seems like a really minimally staffed hospital anyway.
Crew.
But
I mean, Halloween, man, must be like you would think they'd be very busy on Halloween night. Yeah. What with all the kids running around overdosing on candy and such.
Candy and crack. Yeah, that's it.
Crack cocaine.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you'd think so. But I just found that a bit odd. Janet goes for help, and then there's another nurse who's called away from the ward to attend to another patient. We then get Myers' point of view as he walks into Laurie's room and repeatedly stabs, but finds the bed is empty. Laurie has snuck away and is limping down the corridor. She tries to call for help but discovers that the lines are down, which we are aware of. She closes the door to the room she's in, curls up in a ball and then falls asleep. Loomis is then escorted into a car from the previous scene. He's leaving the deputy to handle things. The nurse tries to, going back to hospital, the nurse tries to find the security guard. And at the same point, Jamie discovers the matron's lifeless body from what looks like some botched up blood transfusion. He then slips on the blood and knocks himself out.
Oh, you dickhead.
Thoughts on this section?
It's just, it's a convenient way of getting him
out of the picture.
Yeah. Because we want Laurie to be the one to
that's it.
Take on Michael one-on-one. But that leaves him open to be a saviour later on.
It does.
By just knocking him out, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of concludes our middle act. That's kind of where I thought the middle act would is, because we now get the kind of whole chase sequence occur for our final act. The nurse, we still have the nurse, Janet. She goes out, as I said, to get help. She goes to the car, but it doesn't start. She goes back into the hospital where she finds Laurie. Only Michael sneaks up behind her and stabs her with a scalpel, lifting her off the ground in the process. And we get that shot of like the shoes just dropping to the floor.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, nice little moment.
Yeah. So why... I mean, how small is this town? Like, can you not... If the car didn't start, like, could you not have just kept going?
Kept walking. Yeah, I don't know, because is it from her point of view, though, that she can't... I don't know, then that doesn't make sense, does it?
Because she was going to drive to the...
to somewhere.
Is she like, oh, well, I could drive down there, but then I've got to take... It's a 5-minute drive versus like a 20-minute walk.
Here's you then still dissecting the night's proceedings, like really getting into the nitty gritty.
Now I've also decided I need a map. I want to know the geography.
But the topography as well. Yeah. But it does take a while for Loomis to then kind of come past as well. Like, he's left and it takes him a while to get there. So maybe it is not so.
And they drive out of town as well.
They go past the hospital and then come back.
So there's a hospital on the outskirts of town, maybe.
I don't know, but by that theory, it probably is a long walk in.
Yeah.
So maybe it is like I'm better off trying to.
She should have brought the scooter.
Yeah.
She should have brought the blade scooter.
She should. Roller skates.
Yeah.
Or a skateboard.
Actually, that would have been nice in the 80s. Yeah. Although this is not set in the 80s.
So no, it's not. 1970. No, 1981, but it's set in 1978. Yeah. We learn. At this point, sorry. So this. So what do we just? Oh yeah, the kill. Of our nurse. Laurie then tries to run. She makes her way downstairs, and Michael slowly follows. Laurie discovers the body of the security guard in the basement. And then she climbs through like a window to escape into another room. She makes her way to an elevator and the door closes just in time as Michael approaches, which is kind of a cliche thing we've seen countless times.
Yeah.
Then Laurie makes her way outside and then hides in one of the cars.
She try to start it as well?
I don't think she does. Does she just... Oh, maybe she does. But she just kind of hides in the car. essentially. Coincidentally, the car escorting Loomis then, back to Smith's Grove, drives past the hospital. And in the car, he learns of this file on Myers that he was unaware of that tells of Laurie being Michael's sister. The big.
I think we kind of knew. It's almost like by the time they say it, we already kind of suspected it.
But do we though? Because like obviously, like from our memory, like most people may have watched Halloween H2O before.
Yeah, I know.
And it's obvious in that bit. So yeah,
but haven't we already had a flashback fever dream thing from Laurie where it's hinted at?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So there's this whole kind of
like when she's earlier and when she's in the hospital.
Yeah, she has this. There's a moment in there, isn't there? There's kind of like alluding to there's more to her life than she's aware of.
Yeah, so I guess you're kind of ready for it when it happens.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in the pantheon of movie twists. I don't know if it's.
It's not a twist moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It's not like
it's just like
Darth Vader.
It's like an off the cuff thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, she's brother. Yeah.
Yeah, she's brother, isn't she? Yeah. You know.
In it.
What,
you didn't know?
You didn't know? Oh, mate. God.
For days.
Weeks. Weeks even.
It doesn't even make sense.
No.
Just delete
we'll cut that out. So basically, yeah. So when Loomis learns of this, reveal, he orders the car to be turned around by gunpoint. Goes a bit psycho himself. Back at the hospital, Jimmy happens to get into the same car that Laurie's in. But he passes out, honking the horn in the process. He's an idiot, isn't he? Laurie gets out the car and falls over just as Loomis turns up and goes inside the hospital. She's unable to warn them of the danger that lurks inside. She tries to go back inside, but the doors are locked. So that kind of makes me think they're very quick at looking doors after them. Then Myers starts to approach her, but so Myers is outside too. He approaches her, but Loomis lets her inside. Myers then walks through the glass doors, seemingly unaffected.
Wow.
It's that kind of guy. Loomis shoots him and he collapses. The woman who's come, the other woman that's come to escort Loomis back to the Smith's Grove. Her name's Marion Chambers. She goes outside to the squad car to call for help. The marshal that's with them bends over to examine Myers' body and is promptly killed by him when his throat is slit. So.
It's like, how many times does he have to bloody warn him? It's like, don't go near him. And then he's just I just want to have a look.
I just want to get close enough, so that my throat can...
He's definitely dead. Yep, I think... Yeah, no, he's definitely... Oh, my God.
How wrong I was. We get a lot of kind of running around dark corridors after this moment. Loomis and then Laurie end up in a operating theatre. Myers breaks down the door to get into the operating theatre, and then Loomis goes to shoot Myers, but the gun jams and Myers stabs him. Myers then approaches Laurie, who shoots him in the head. It looks like it's in the head.
It's got to be, right?
So the blood, because there's blood now seeps out of the eye sockets of the mask, right?
Right. So he's blind now.
He's blind and he's wildly swiping around with his knife. Loomis then goes around turning on the gas cylinders inside there, inside the operating theatre.
Unsafe hospital in history.
I know, isn't it? Laurie escapes the room, and then Loomis flicks on his lighter and the room explodes. Music swells and Myers stumbles out of the room, engulfed in flames, and then collapses to the floor. We then cut to the...
Sorry.
No, go on, let's comment on that bit.
No, I just had a random thought. Like, the one thing missing was the one-liner before he turns the lighter on. It's Halloween, bitch.
It's Halloween, bitch. Or a reference to Assault on Precinct 13. Got a light.
Ah, that would have been... Yeah, that was a missed opportunity. Yeah. Donald Pleasance should know better.
He should have said, got a light. I do.
They should have done multiple takes. Yeah. Done Judd Apatow and just got like a whole bunch of different versions.
Yeah.
You just got Michael Myers.
Just get Michael Myers. I like David Caruso take the sunglasses off.
Yeah.
And that's what I call a fiery situation.
He could have just... They could have just kept it simple. Like, go to hell or something.
Yeah. Go to hell,
Get
Myers.
away from her, you... Oh, wait, no.
You bitch.
Can't use that one.
is it a little bit hot in here, or is it me? Oh no, that's something completely different.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's before we kind of conclude on like the wrap up of the movie. What are your thoughts of that kind of the finale, kind of engulfed in flames?
It's very action movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, there is a bit.
It's
of
all alien. Actually, we were just talking about aliens just then, but
we were.
It's something you'd see in a James Cameron movie, but. Just because it's not scary doesn't mean it's not a cool moment. Like
well, what's interesting I find about this particular moment is it's very much about the whole Loomis and Myers thing with this instance. Like even Laurie's kind of removed from the instance with this, so we've got the whole kind of double-sided coin, a good and evil.
Yeah.
And Loomis sacrifices himself.
And he's already been stabbed, so it's okay. Been stabbed. He's probably going to die anyway.
He's dead.
Yeah.
He's out. He's not coming back. He's not going to come back, surely.
So he's like, fuck this. I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory.
That's it. And then he sings the old John Bon Jovi song.
Yeah, but...
Or not.
It is, he's definitely dead.
He's dead. He's not. There's no way he's coming back from that. No. And Myers, both of them, they're down and out. They're done.
Well, maybe
done.
Myers.
No, come on.
Maybe not.
Come on, go for flames.
Yeah.
So we cut to the next day. It's morning, and it's just the aftermath of the night before. So we finally get dawn breaking.
Yeah.
And the deputy and his assistant survey the scene. Laurie is then assisted into the ambulance and driven away. She stares vacantly as Mr. Sandman music then drifts into play over Myers' fiery corpse. Close credits.
So she been taken to another hospital in the same town, or is she just?
Who knows? I don't even know. It might even be on another outskirts of a town somewhere, nowhere near the town itself.
She's just forever gonna
be transported from
how
hospital to hospital.
Would you be mentally after?
Yeah,
back to back ordeals.
Yeah, it's almost like you'd go into hiding, wouldn't you? You'd end up kind of being a teacher somewhere in some remote place.
No, I think you'd be a crazy cat lady or something.
Crazy cat lady.
There's no going.
Get away from my cat!
To normal civilization after something like that.
That's it.
So Donald took the easy way out.
The easy way out. Yeah. Yeah, what a bastard.
Shed himself.
Should have killed Laurie. Should have taken them all down.
Just no guilt there.
You ain't getting out of this, Laurie.
Live with the
There's
guilt
no getting over it. Yeah. So that's the kind of the climax of the film. I guess before we sway judgment, let's just do a quick kind of recap of the Michael Myers body count or the deaths that occur within this.
And now the Michael Myers body count.
Doodly-doo-doo-doo. First up at number 1, it's Alice Martin. She's stabbed in the chest with a butcher knife.
If only we got to know her a little better.
Yeah, we didn't. Like, she was so naive to the whole proceedings that, But yeah, so that's and it's an on-screen death, and yes, the killer in this instance is Michael Myers. There's a total of 10 deaths in this movie.
Wow, it's more than I thought.
It's bigger than I thought, isn't it? And it's only I think the first movie was seven deaths. So like. It is
including the opening scene.
Yes, including the opening scene. Yeah. The second death is not by the hands of Michael Myers, though. It's by the guy's name is Ben Tramer. You just killed Ben Tramer. So that's the kid that's hit by the speeding police car.
Yeah.
Killed in an explosion. And yeah, by Deputy Ramsey was the culprit.
Well,
does he go down for his crimes?
Does
he heck?
His career's probably over now, wouldn't you say?
Just blamed it on Myers.
There's going to be an investigation.
Hey, that wasn't me.
He's going to be behind the desk for the rest of his days.
I know. No one stops to think about Deputy Ramsey.
He's no longer fit for active duty.
Damn it. But then, like happily, all the rest of the deaths are at the hands of our good friend Michael Myers. Mr. Garrett is the next one, who's our security guard. He's
that was his son.
Hitting the head with a claw hammer. Then we get Bud Scarlatti strangled with a length of cord, followed by Nurse Carol Bailey. I always had her name down as Carol. I think her name's Karen. She's then drowned and scalded in the boiling hot tub. Probably one of the better death scenes, as we said. Would you agree?
Stands out.
Stands out, definitely. Then we get Dr. Frederick Mixter. He's the one that's stabbed in the eye with a syringe.
We don't know what that sounded like, because
we don't know. But I presume it was like this. And so
it sounds a lot like the 2 deaths ago.
Yeah. There was a similar things, but the slight difference was the back of the throat kind of gurgle. Yeah. So he's the one. Well, there's 2 kind of deaths that occur off scene. He's the first one. Then we get this seventh victim, Nurse Janet Marshall. She's the one that's injected with the air bubble when she discovers death of Doctor. Then we get Nurse Virginia Alves. So she's the one, the other death that doesn't occur on screen. She's the one that's had her blood drained by this severe kind of IV drip, blood transfusion kind of thing.
It's very Frankenstein, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. He must have had a lot of time to do that. We'll have to, when we retrace our kind of Myers Haddonfield night death scenes.
Yeah. I think by this point he's given up.
How long does it take
getting to bed when he wanted to? He's just like, it's an all-nighter. Like, I'm in here for the long haul.
I think we said that in the first film when with the death of Annie Brackett and then the setting up her corpse on the bed.
It's an art form.
Yeah, it would have taken him a while. So, like, is this another instance of it? Is this another side of like Myers' fascination?
The thing is, you probably would see something like that in an art installation, like in some gallery somewhere.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. He probably was quite happy with it.
I reckon
he's Picasso.
I reckon this was his Picasso moment in this film.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to analyse.
Maybe more of a Jackson Pollock.
Probably is more of a Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
Either way, whichever art skew that you'd like to look at it from a visual point of view.
Not important.
I wonder though if there are those kind of like those moments in every film. We should look at that to see if there's a tableau effect.
Making that occur.
We will.
Listener?
Yeah. Then we get our ninth victim, Nurse Jill Franco. She's stabbed in the back with a scalpel and then lifted up off the ground with their shoes falling off. And our final victim is Marshal Terence Gummel. Throat slit with a scalpel.
He deserved it.
He did. Stupid guy. What a guy.
He had it coming.
Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, no.
Chicago moment there. Interesting. It's interesting pull of musical resources you're going with there. Okay, so look. The death ante is truly upped at this point. As I said, up by a few this time round. Where do you think this sits so far in the canon of movies? When we compare it to the original, do they succeed in upping the ante in a successful way? Does it still keep you gripped? Are you still interested in Myers, Loomis, and Strode's journey?
I think Michael Myers is the reason to. Like, Laurie is too sidelined, so
she's a bit in this,
really get behind her.
No,
and Michael is. Like, when he turns into the Terminator at the end there, it stops being, like, what I consider to be, like, proper, like, slasher horror.
Yeah.
And it just gets a little too unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a fine line you got to walk with your villain when they're seemingly indestructible.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you bring guns into it. Because
a
bullet is a bullet.
But we've already seen him rise from the dead, albeit not actually physically see him rise from dead. His body just vanishes from the original.
But I always assumed that he was wounded from that and just carried on.
And it gives the sense of that too, because there is blood on the grass at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
So you get the
he's just. I get the feeling he's just pushing through because he hasn't finished what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, which is kill Laurie Strode, obviously.
Which is the other stuff. It's the other stuff that bothers me, like when he's charging through doors and things like that, like. Yeah. James Cameron was watching. Taking notes.
He was like, "Oh, I know how to do this better."
Yeah, that's right.
And none of this engulfing flames. I'm going to drop you in molten liquid.
Yeah, I think
that's how you die.
Yeah, with the thumb in the air.
Thumb in the air.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than I would have gone the middle finger.
Middle finger, maybe. Yeah.
Just flipping off Eddie Furlong, just like.
Yeah, fuck you.
You little shit.
It's not hasta la vista, baby. It's fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you, John Connor. Yeah.
Fuck you in your prepubescent voice.
Yeah. God damn you.
Put the gun down now. He's always making so much in that movie.
We love him. We love you, Edward. The lead up. The chase is a bit meh. The lead up is meh, and the final demise is a bit meh. Is what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's cruel.
What's the hook that keeps you in then? Is there a hook that keeps you in, and is that hook Donald Pleasance's
I think so.
uber performance?
Like he makes you believe in some of those lines.
Yeah.
Like he just it's his Shakespearean training.
Yeah.
But I think he's the one thing that kind of keeps you.
So there's no way, even with all the other characters that are dispatched through it too, we at no point are we connected with any of them.
Not Jamie. Like, you would think that Jamie would be, a new kind of someone to root for.
Whatever happened to Jamie? He's still passed out in the car.
Well, he's not going to get lucky now, is he?
No, he's not.
I mean, probably wouldn't have. Anyway.
Is he still in that car to this day? They've just only. No one realised he was there.
The horn is still.
He's still.
Yeah.
Still tooting away. Look, I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? That whole journey. So we're 2 movies in, and we're clearly saying that on the pantheon of Halloween franchise movies, this is nowhere near the par of the original.
No, I mean, it's not. It's kind of like it's a version of the original.
It is.
It's.
But one thing. Sorry to interrupt you there, but like one thing you did remark on that interested you about the premise of this movie is where it picks up where it left off. In that sense, does that still? Where did you end up with your thoughts at the end of that movie? Did you think it carried the storyline?
Yeah, I mean, it's called Halloween, so it makes sense that it continues on Halloween night.
Yeah.
The alternative would be for him to run away and then return the following Halloween.
That's it.
Which is another way they could have done it. But I guess there's more immediacy.
Yeah.
In the fact, I mean, they've chucked Back to the Future 2 and just like picked it up immediately with the first one left off.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Back to the Future reference again.
They did it to me, man. They played the Sandman song.
That's it.
But I don't think that was a bad idea.
No, I kind of liked it actually. I like the idea of it doing that. Particularly the way the first one ended, it kind of felt like that was the natural rhythm of the piece. He's still out there, so if he's still walking and breathing, then he's going to just keep going. Cool. All right. Well, look, that was the end of the Halloween 2. And that's the end of Myers, end of Loomis. We're not gonna see them again.
No.
And we'll pick up Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, will be our next franchise discussions.
I'm looking forward to it.
They do, in fact, not pick up on the last instance of it. So we'll keep you waiting with bated breath for that one. Until now, though, that concludes our recording of Halloween 2 discussions. Until then, we are Ben Skinner.
Goodbye.
And your humble host as ever, Paul Farrell. Goodbye.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. The Halloween franchise. Halloween 2. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.